Hey guys, Justin Bryant here from selfmadesuccess.com. In this video, I'm going to show you 9 YouTube video ideas for sports channels. If you want to build a channel, whether you're a pro and you've been around a while or you have a new channel that you want to build. So I'm going to give you a list of ideas. I'm going to break down each one, explain them, and show you examples of channels you can get ideas from. So the first is sports move tutorials. So for instance, you could go to B-Ball Breakdown. They have 500 plus thousand subscribers. And if you wanted to learn how to shoot like Stephen Curry, who's a very well-known NBA player, if you wanted to learn how to shoot like, say, Klay Thompson, a very accomplished shooter himself, if you wanted to see breakdowns of film of like why certain teams play as good a defense as they do. You can see right here talking about the New Orleans Pelicans defense, stuff like that, and different ideas and different breakdowns of all things that have to do with basketball. So, for instance, you could teach people how to play a certain way, how to throw the football like a certain player, how to shoot a basketball like a certain player, how to play defense like a certain player, those types of things, and then you can have some really good keywords to build traffic from because you're using those players' names. Just make sure you don't use any copyrighted content as if you can avoid it in any way. Number 2, crazy trick shots. So that would be like Dude Perfect or something like that, where they do crazy basketball shots where they're doing flips and stuff and they're passing to each other in midair and then they shoot it and it's like over a house or something. You could do that. Highlight compilations. So like House of Highlights, almost 400,000 subscribers now. They do all kinds of highlights of individual players, of individual games and stuff like that. Now, I don't know how they avoid copyright problems. It probably has to do with the whole compilation type thing, or maybe it has to do with the length of their videos, but somehow they get around the copyright problems that usually would come with that. And so maybe you can get some ideas from House of Highlights on how to do that in an original way where it becomes an original video. So you could see highlights of all kinds of basketball players and stuff like that. And they have a whole channel for that. Another thing you can do, sports gear. You can do reviews and comparisons of gear, whether it's, certain types of basketball shorts or basketball shoes or cleats for football, cleats for soccer, certain types of brands that you like for, maybe sports drinks, whatever. Fantasy sports is another thing that's really taken off these last few years, a multi-billion-dollar industry, and you can do an entire channel devoted to that. So like the fantasy footballers, they have 119,000 plus subscribers now, and they just talk about fantasy football all the time. That's just for fantasy football. They don't even get into fantasy basketball, fantasy hockey, fantasy baseball, and stuff like that. They just kind of talk about, like, should you play this guy or this guy this week? They'll talk about daily. They'll talk about season-long fantasy sports and those types of things. So you could do that. Number 7 is sporting news. So you could talk about the latest trades. You could talk about, like, I think House of Highlights. They've been doing like a podcast type thing. Sometimes they'll post that. Like, here you go. You have weekly NBA awards. They have like a weekly thing. They talk about like news and awards for players and stuff. Who's doing good lately. So news would be like something that you could never run out of ideas from, because there's always a player, getting in a fight somewhere, or a player getting suspended, or a player getting injured, or a player getting traded, or a player signing a new deal or a contract extension, and those types of things. Number 8, your opinion on trades, future of the sport, free agents, etc. Okay, so for instance, you could talk about like fantasy footballers. They'll talk about trades. What's the impact of, here's one right here. Amari Cooper traded to the Dallas Cowboys for a first round pick. So there's something you could do right there. So a trade, what are the repercussions of that? How does that affect the Oakland Raiders and their players as far as fantasy football goes? How does it affect the Cowboys? How does it affect the quarterback, receivers, the running back, and the trickle-down effect on their fantasy numbers? Those types of things are great. You could talk about the future of the sport. You could talk about maybe potential trades that you would like to see happen that might be good. Like the NBA has an NBA trade machine. You could search NBA trade machine in Google and do your own trades and match up contracts to make it work. And it'll tell you if it works. You have like the future of the sport. Where is the offense of football going in the future? Obviously, it's becoming more of a spread offense. If you keep up with football, basically that means you have more receivers. You don't have a fullback. Usually you have like one running back, quarterback. A lot of times they're in shotgun formation. You know, basketball, they're spreading the floor more with three-point shooters. So you could talk about like the future of how that stuff is going. And then number 9, your favorite players to watch. And then you can do like highlights. You can show why you like to watch those players. You can show, you can draw arrows and stuff to show what kind of play they run or why one player is so good at one thing. And that type of stuff is also a big thing too. So B-ball breakdown and house of highlights would kind of cover those types of things. So like they talk about kind of how Blake Griffin scored 50. They have highlights. They talk about how certain players play defense, those types of things. So that's it for this video. If you thought this was helpful, please like and subscribe so I can create more videos like this for you. If you want to let me know what you thought about the video or share something you'd like me to cover in the future, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you and get your feedback. And I'll have show notes for you in a link in the YouTube video description and on selfmadesuccess.com. So other than that, I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.